I am a self-confessed Armageddonist. You know, I'm okay with that. I'm not particularly optimistic of the future. Why is it that other species should come and go on this planet and suffer an extinction event, and not us? What, because we're clever? We don't seem to really understand our home. We've become obsessed with the pet industry, and it's a huge cost to the environment. Why must we have another species to make us happy? It's so sad, so sad. The population of the planet tripling in one person's lifetime. The years that David Attenborough has been alive, population has gone from 2.7 billion to like 8 billion. In that time, consumption per capita is probably tenfold. You've got to be somewhat dumb not to realize that that's having a huge impact. We seem to be addicted to families. It seems to be like, well, if you don't have a family, you're kind of weird. Most of the problems in the world today stem between a man's legs. That's where it starts from.
Okay, well, welcome to the EcoVenturist, and I've got a very special guest today. It's a gentleman called Paul Liston. I've known Paul for a long, long time, and I'm going to go back to where we met and how our paths crossed shortly. But I will just tell you that if you want the black book of conservationists in this planet, this is your man. He is unbelievably connected in the world of conservation, like nobody I've ever met before. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And the best part of it, Paul, is you are not somebody that keeps those names to yourself. You're the biggest sharer of context. And I've always said that about you. I think it's a wonderful trait because so many people hang on to everything. When it's conservation, you can't do that because this planet is so buggered.
I think in the business world, a lot of people, by the way, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Lovely to see you home finally. I think in the business world, people have a habit of creating, producing something or having a service, and it's something exclusive about it, and they keep the cards close to their chest, and that runs on sometimes into the world of philanthropy. But as far as I'm concerned, sharing is caring, and I love bringing groups of people up to Allerdale and places like that, and really putting them together. And you can't believe the connections that have been made as a result of that.
I want you to just journey back to around 2003, because I was sitting down in South Africa, and my father said to me as a young 30-year-old, get on a plane and come and relocate to the UK and really start marketing chamois. And I came here kicking and screaming. I really didn't want to come here.
Yeah.
And then he said to me, by the by, there's an interesting man that I want you to meet. He's contacted me. He's bought this beautiful reserve in the Highlands of Scotland, and he is keen and considering bringing back some serious species. And that person happened to be you. And of course, me coming from Africa to here, I thought, oh, my earth spirit's going to be destroyed living in London. I'm not going to have my chamois to go to anymore. But my next chamois became Allerdale. And it was your beautiful reserve that we got introduced to. And I think in those early days, it was around 2003, you approached Dad. Do you want to just elaborate?
I think I'd heard about what Adrian had been doing at Chamois way back then, and a friend of mine, I think was Graham Lockridge, was visiting on holiday, and I said to him, well, please can you go and open some doors there and see if you could meet Adrian, who set this whole operation up. And I think what happened was that Graham came back to London and then made the introduction. I think I soon then went down to meet Dad.
Yeah.
I can't remember what year it was. You remember what year that was?
Would have been 03, 04, I think.
Yeah.
Because then we all came to you.
Yeah.
And not just Mum and Dad and myself. I think you got our chief of wildlife. So it was John O'Brien and Johan Joubert, the wildlife vet.
Yeah, well,
we all got on planes and came over.
Yeah, well, the Allerdale, we got in 2003, and it was really bought with the sole purpose, solely focused on the wolf. Thinking, well, wolves are never going to get back into the UK and the freedom of the countryside because of livestock issues and just so many people and infrastructure and railroads and motorways and stuff. I thought, well, I wanted to create this fenced reserve, which is where my original idea of the fenced reserve came from, which was chamois. And then if you combine the vision of what's been going on in Yellowstone in the last 25, 30 years, where wolves coming back have created a huge tourism benefit. I think it's something like $18 million a year now. It's additionality tourism revenues to the Greater Yellowstone area since having wolves back.
And that's the number one national park to visit in the country.
Yeah. So the original idea was that, and I then, it took me a while to buy Allerdale. I looked for like 3 or 4 years,
I remember you telling me.
and I had a whole list of 10 criteria. But we got Allerdale and started to announce that news, and that was quite something. When people sort of start reading that sort of chap bought a place up there and wants to bring back wolves and whatever.
God, you got press there. I remember that.
People always confuse it. They like to, the media, what they like to glamorize things and blow it up. And I never said the word reintroduction. It was always a release into a controlled environment.
So
but they just jump on, and then there's all this uproar, and people say, "Oh, you've got the ramblers fighting you, and this, that, and the other, and so on and so forth." But no, the concept was and still is this fence reserve. Now, along the way, we've done a lot of other things in regarding nature restoration, rewilding, as they call it. Planting over 1 million trees, and we got another, I think, 180,000 to do this year. And restoring peatlands, we did about 500 acres. We now got, I think, 1,500 acres we're doing.
Explain the peatlands to me, because peatlands are kind of ripped up, and it's used as
well. What happened? I think what happened, something like 75 or 100 years ago, that there was an incentive to drain peatlands, to put big drains down them, and so you could put livestock on them, and they could graze.
Because it was
they were quite boggy. They were quite boggy.
Yeah.
So what you do in the process when you do that, the water runs off the hill that much quicker. It gets into the gullies.
Sure.
It erodes those gullies deeper and deeper and deeper. So how the cattle or livestock move around, I don't know. But and then the water washes into the river system, and then you have flood issues, and you have lots of runoff with the silt and everything else. So of course, there hundreds of thousands of years ago, there was just trees everywhere. But now there's this peatland, and so we've been restoring it. In fact, they're going on right now. I was up earlier this week.
Is that sort of closing the drains and stopping
closing the drains? But they kind of scarify the area. There's a way that these machine operators kind of they reshape the landscape, and it makes the water settle and stay and go through and permeate. And of course, what happens is that when we drained a peat all those years ago, what we weren't realizing then was that the carbon that was locked up in those peat hags, and sometimes it can be meters deep, can be 3 or 4 meters deep of peat, all that carbon escapes into the atmosphere because it dries out, doesn't retain carbon anymore. So now, when you restore this peatland, you sequester carbon.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most important, like we talk about seagrass these days, and peatland's one of those. It's a mangrove. They're very important ecosystems.
We have one in South Africa called speckworm, which is the bacon tree. Same thing.
Yes.
We were just talking about that last night, actually.
Have you been doing planting down there?
Well, the Eastern Cape is full of it. A lot of it's getting planted in other parts of the country as a sequester of carbon. It's very, very good.
So we were sort of pioneers of this landscape restoration. It was really, to me, it was kind of obvious thing to do, because I'm not a traditional landowner. Those 25 years ago, people were buying land for their private use or hunting, shooting, fishing, all that sort of stuff. And I think I turned up and I have no interest in hunting, shooting or fishing. I shot some deer early in my life in my 20s. And I was really quite a curveball. I think people knew what to make of me. And I think a lot of people thought, well, it'd be here for 5 or 10 years, and then scoot off. But what's happened in the meantime is that my eldest nephew, Ben, is completely immersed in the project.
He was always going to be. You could see that at a young age.
Always. He's amazing. And I think that, he will carry the vision on when I've gone. So it's nice to see that succession.
Well, it's nice. I mean, as I said, with my father, when he arrived in Eastern Cape, he was the first one. He was the disruptor amongst the sheep, cattle and goat farmers, bringing back Africa's big five. And everybody frowned upon this and laughed at him, and naysayers. And he took a lot of flack.
A lot.
Yeah.
No, but he did it.
But I think it was a lot easier. I think you're up against, Firstly, your neighbours are obviously. Yeah, talk about your neighbours because they haven't.
Well,
They haven't switched over from the hunting.
I mean, I'm sort of particularly in an area where there's quite traditional, land use and neighbours. But no, they're slowly, they're realising there's another way of
good. And
of running that. But
Ben's the guy that can maybe do that with their sons and daughters.
yes, exactly, that's the plan. But of course, it's easy to just get on the bandwagon with wind farms, for example. And stick up a wind farm.
Easy solution. Yeah.
There are 2 wind farms that are being planned near me, and people say, do you want to fight them? And I go, well, you know what, I can't be bothered. I think if that's what people really want to do with the land, then do it. I just don't want them on our property. I can see why there's a big incentive. There's a financial incentive. And of course, with all the green energy and things like this, as a landowner having a wind farm, you can, create, a lot of revenue.
Yeah, no,
I mean, some people got £1 million or more.
It's easy money, yeah. It's a bit of a cop out. I always say.
Cheers, by the way.
Hey, cheers, Paul. I always said, living here down in Surrey, if I knew that there was a game reserve offering a bear experience, bears catching salmon out the river and a pack of wolf hunting down the red deer, I mean, gee, I'd be up there often. And that's just me. There must be thousands and thousands of people that would be fixated.
The demand would be huge, Paul. You can't imagine. I mean, there's tens of thousands of wolves now across Europe. They get into a bit of grief in certain regions.
Yeah, I just read yesterday, Slovenia, I think they've been given permission to cull about 300.
Yeah.
That's bears, by the way.
Bears, yeah, I mean, Slovakia.
Slovakia.
But, I just see a shift of landscape use. And I think we need to understand that when you fly from London to Istanbul across Europe, you fly over, it's a farm the entire way.
I know.
You just look out the window of the airplane and you'll see everything just neatly chopped up into nice squares or rectangles or what have you. And we've literally farmed the entire continent. There's probably 5% that we haven't, mostly clinging to mountain ranges. Even then we've had to go with ski resorts and things. But, it's very sad. And I think what partly inspired me to do what I'm doing in Scotland was to think, well, wouldn't it be nice just to try and reverse that? It was kind of obvious to me. I thought, well, it's pretty impoverished landscape up there, good for sheep farming and not much else, a bit of deer hunting, and that was it. So not much revenue coming out. And I firmly believe that tourism does multiple things for the community,
100%,
for the souls that go there. We all know how this forest bathing is helping people cure illnesses. And I just think the more we can get people into nature, the better. And if you can have some wild animals that they can see, that's going to bring in more people, and then you get this sort of momentum of shift, of change. And I'm a big supporter, of seeing landscapes be farmed less intensively, see some areas rewilded, and then people will go and visit those areas and stay there and enjoy them rather than going on a farm. I mean, do you realize? I think it's something like 27% of the Earth's surface, less ice and desert. So 27% of a net usable space, effectively, has been used to raise livestock.
It's a big number.
And that's not necessarily grazing. That's food crops. 27%. So you can fly from I don't know, New Orleans to Los Angeles, and it just be just one big.
Remember, I pointed it out to you when we flew out to Richmond, Virginia. I said, Christian, just look out the window. It's all you see. Just a checkerboard of squares. There's nothing, no wilderness, no biodiversity.
I'm very critical. When I always like to get, if I can, a window seat in a plane, because it tells a lot when you look out the window. It tells a lot. And when you fly over certain parts of Europe which are still wild, you're not flying them very long, but if you can notice them. So when you fly over the Carpathians of Romania, say, or you fly over the Cantabrian mountains of Asturias and northern Spain, when you fly over the Dehesa of Andalusia, southern Spain, you see that there's no intensive land use. And I just think it would be nice to get people out of cities and enjoying trips, holidays, and experiences. I mean, Spain is an unbelievable country when you think about the biodiversity between the Balearics, the Pyrenees, the Cantabrian Mountains, the Sierra Nevada in the south, and then right down to the Canaries. The biodiversity is huge.
It's incredible, eh?
And there's so much to see and do. And people think of Spain, about beaches and stuff,
Yeah.
and going on the next.
Certainly in this country, that's
Yeah.
all they perceive it to
Yeah.
be is.
And there's a vast range of mammal life there and carnivores, including lynx, but they've all been under threat over some time. I mean, the Iberian lynx is probably one of the most beautiful cat species, and I think probably the most endangered one. Some 20, 25 years ago, there's 100 left in two populations of Sierra Morena and Doñana National Park. There was 100 between the two populations, and these things are on the brink of extinction. It took a monumental effort to build 4 breeding centers, 1 in Portugal and 3 in Spain, to turn that situation around.
Yeah.
And now, 25 years on, there's 2,000 lynx in something like 12 populations between Madrid right down to the south of Spain. So wildlife, like there are other examples in Europe of animals living on the brink. And another place would be central Italy. Not a lot of people know this, but there's 60 to 70 brown bears living 2 hours drive from Rome.
Wow.
In a place called Abruzzo. And the one village there at the center of this park called Pescaceroli has become like the focal point of sort of human wildlife coexistence.
Okay.
They still graze their cattle and sheep and livestock and make their goat cheese or whatever, but they live together with
harmony,
wolves and bears. And
it's good to hear.
It's great examples of, and we take people there on trips now. We call them coexistence journeys, and I think more people are seeking out more meaningful, sort of earthy, nature-based tourism experiences. I mean, of course, Africa's had the lion's share of that for a long time.
Fun, but yeah.
And I think that those people that have been to Africa are always looking and searching to see what other places they can uncover. And Europe's got quite a few gems, really.
Well, you're going to hopefully introduce us to a lot of those, because the EcoVenturist would love to showcase a lot of that. That's what we're about. We really want to go and unearth these little gems that so few know about. If you're into wildlife and conservation, you'll know about it. But if you're not,
well, you guys should be jumping on a plane in a week's time, because one of my ambassadors of the European Nature Trust, one of our partners in Spain, Inca, Marti, they're going to spend 4 or 5 days, researching the lynx issues and meeting landowners where they come back and things.
Are you going to be a part of that?
I won't be there.
But that's exactly, those are the stories you want to capture.
Yeah. Well, they're out there. They're out there. There's great stories. I mean, I'm looking forward to going at the end of the last week of August. Rather bizarrely, I've become friends with the Australian String Quartet, as you do.
Only you.
As you do. I've become friends with that lovely company, and they're going to be playing in Finland, I think Helsinki or Turku or somewhere in August. And I will go there and I'll go to a couple of the concerts. But then I'll be racing to the Russian border to meet a guy called Lassi Rautanen, who has been leading bear, wolf, and lynx tours for more than 3 decades, probably. And I want to go up and see Lassi. It's years since I've seen him.
Okay.
So wherever you are in Europe, there are places that you can get to, quite easy sometimes, and to get a bit of real wild nature. And of course, Britain, unfortunately, is one of the most nature depleted countries on the planet. I mean, we rank in the bottom 5 to 10% of countries, alongside Haiti, and East Ireland. We have
rubbing shoulders with the best.
We have done a royal job of altering our landscape to a point of virtually no return. And that's why they talk about Scotland being the first rewilding nation. And there's so much, noise around this subject right now with the beavers and
Yeah.
pine martens and wild boar, because we've lost so much. There is an urgency to bring it back, and then you got challenges with rural traditional farming, communities and things like this. So
Well, you went through some of those challenges, because I remember there being moose, I remember there being bison, and I remember there being wild boar, albeit in enclosures on Allerdale.
Yeah.
It was quite short-lived, but
Well, it was
obviously
short,
that came with a lot of bloody frustration for you.
but no, but they were all very interesting
projects.
Well, the one that was really authentic, and I'm pans up, the most authentic one of those was the one that we did with David MacDonald at Wild Crew in Oxford, where Chris Sandham and David made a plan to scope out what effect wild boar would have on a highland environment. What effect would they have on the heather and the gorse and the bracken? How would a wild boar go about rotivating the land, and how would they survive? Well, they did a fantastic job of breaking the ground open, so natural regeneration can happen more easily. Because
So they're chopping it up with their
with their tusks and things,
tusks
and they just break the ground open and they root around.
grabs
And so, if you can imagine a seed coming off a tree or something and landing in heather that's that thick, it's got to get through all of that.
Yeah.
It's got to get in the ground, and it's got to get out. I mean, it's virtually impossible. So, and then you end up with monocultures of heather and stuff on the hills of Scotland. So the boar did a great job. They could break that all up, and it was measured how much they go about in a week and what they get up to.
I remember they made a hell of a mess.
They did.
It was impressive.
They did. But unfortunately, wild boar are forest creatures.
Yeah.
And although they're good at helping the forest regenerate, they need to be in one. They can't be left in the open, because in the open, if it rains one day and then there's a hard frost at night, their skin, or their fur rather, is not structured like a wolf or a cat. The density is nowhere near the same. So they perish. They will just get cold and they will die.
They get sick. So
And they get very
you lost quite a lot.
Well, no, we built hutches for them eventually. But it was a 2-year sort of program that, and the results are out there. They're online, and it's useful.
But
now boar are in Scotland, but they're in more lowland areas where there are oak forests, proper forests, like on the side of Loch Ness. There's some good.
Tell me, the million trees that have been planted at Allerdale today. Now, it's still early days. When I say early, some of those trees are over 20 years old, but is there scope to release boar in there? But is that like in 50 years' time?
No, it's still too soon. I mean, even the idea of bringing beavers back into those areas that were planted 20 years ago.
Too sensitive.
It's too soon, too sensitive. Yeah. We let some deer in there now.
Okay, that's
so we've opened up.
You always had the fence.
So they have one block, in particular, one that Richard McCare, the previous owner, had already started planting trees. God bless him. That block, we've let 1 or 2 red deer in there now, and they're doing their job of how would you say, they like kind of prune a tree. They browse it,
which is perfect,
with antlers, and they eat at the lower branches, and then the trees grow up faster. They just want to escape. So we got some deer in there, but I mean, we go back to what you said before with the moose. Well, the moose is a bit of a story.
And they came from Sweden, I think.
They came from Sweden, but that was a bit of an awkward situation, because the BBC had been filming for a year, and they thought I was going to bring the wolves back within 12 months, of starting filming. I said, I never said that. Well, and they wanted to see something at the end of the series that was something that had really been achieved, other than planting trees, at some species. So we decided that it should be elk, European elk, which is the same as American moose. And so what happened was, they came back, and we brought them in from northern Sweden, and they do a lot of damage to forests. I mean, you need a really thick, healthy forest to support elk, because they really get through it. They eat a lot of brash, a lot, And so we ended up putting one area, and they were doing quite a lot of damage. So we ended up in a small area, supplementary feeding them, and they started to breed. And then eventually we said it's enough. But they filmed it all, and a couple of years later, I think we moved the moose down to the Highland Wildlife Park.
Okay.
They never could get any healthy moose there, so I think we took them some nice. But yeah, and then of course people can see the animals and they can understand about them, read up about them, all the rest of it. So
And
nice.
the bison?
Well, the bison was
I saw them. I mean,
they were brought back. Yeah, they were brought back a little bit too fast. That was a bit hasty.
Okay.
And we thought, or I was under the impression that when bison came back, that we'd be able to let them move freely without fences, and that they would just keep to the low ground, the riparian area. But you can't presume that. You know, they bison will move around. I mean, in Romania, we brought back bison to our project there, and they're traveling dozens of miles. They're even getting to the top of really high ridges, and they kind of get to the top and they sort of look over and go, nah, we got back up. And it's amazing. The ridges are ones that create the borders for the bison in Romania. But they're expanding. They're doing very well over there. But they're also forest.
Speaking of Romania, you see we've got the flag up. We've spoken about Scotland. Let's move on to Romania, because I know this is a real passion project for you and the team at the European Nature Trust. And I know you've got a lot of your connections in the conservation world and philanthropists and billionaires, etc., involved. I think it's largely thanks to you, because you've been the glue that's pulled everybody together. I don't know, you can elaborate.
I'm kind of a trustee, have been since inception. And yes, I helped at the beginning and made some introduction and things, but now there's, I think, 150 staff now in the project in Romania, and there's a big fundraising team, and we're even getting support now from Romanians, which is great.
Why Romania? Because there's a reason why you chose it.
Well, I mean, I've been going to Romania since 1982, can you believe it? That was back in the furniture days, and I remember vividly my trips to Romania, and I never really got out and saw the nature, but come back in the early 90s, Roy Dennis, who was one of Britain's leading ornithologists, particularly around raptors. Roy said to me, there was a gentleman that was talking at the Crofters Association annual dinner in Inverness, last week, that was talking about coexistence. And what had happened is that the Munich Wildlife Society, post-communism, sent over Christoph and a couple other people into Romania to try and understand how is it that there can be so many large carnivores, 8,000 bears, 3,000 wolves, 2,000 lynx-ish. How can they live there with 20 million sheep around? And they wanted to understand that. And that project went on for quite some years, and I got involved, and I went over there to meet Christoph, and it was, I'll never forget the day I went there. I'll never forget the journey we had up in snowmobiles up to the ridge of this mountain range and looking at the forest miles and miles out there. And it was, you just couldn't help but fall in love with it, you know. And basically, Romania and the people living in Transylvania, in rural Transylvania, had never been without these large carnivores. You know, they'd kind of like, well, that's part of the program, you know. Yeah, I mean, we've got our sheep flocks. We do the transhumance. We take them up to the alpine meadows in the summer and bring them down in the winter. And when we're in the meadows, you know, you're there, you know, with bears and wolves and lynx around. So you have to look after. You have to be what's called a shepherd. You have to shepherd your flock, and that means sleeping out at night, and staying in camps, setting up camps up there. And they spend 4 or 5 months of the summer living up there, making their cheese and milking the cows and so on, and taking the wool from the sheep and so on. And they've been doing it for all that time, and they hadn't lost their connection with nature, and that was very interesting. But you know, the other challenging thing about Romania is that since the land become, the communism finished, there was all this restitution process where former heirs before communism took over after the Second World War. Those heirs got some way of getting their land back that they had before it was sort of confiscated off them, and this is called the process of restitution. And what happens is these landowners get the papers for their piece of property there, and they go, "What do I want with 50 hectares half up a mountainside in Romania? I live in Paris now. I'm a dentist.
Yeah.
This is my grandfather." So that's a bit of a problem, because then those lands will get into, like forests rather, will get into the wrong hands, and these people will then, illegally log them for big industry. And that's a big problem in Romania. There's at least three huge Austrian timber companies processing wood there, and then they inevitably supply panel goods and solid goods to big retailers like IKEA and the likes. So and that's been a real problem, because some of these forests have got beech trees that are hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
And it's really one of the last really old forests left in Europe. I think Romania has 50% of all the old growth forests of Europe. 50%.
One country in Europe.
One country, 50%.
Grief.
And not a lot of people know that. People,
No.
when they think of Romania, Dracula, the Upper Swamp.
Transylvania.
They think of orphanages. They think of
Gangsters.
They think of criminals and corruption.
Yeah.
But what they don't necessarily think about is the unbelievable nature that's there, and also that our king has made it his home. There's a man that's traveled the world. There's a guy that's been probably every country in the world, I'd say, virtually, and yet he's chosen Romania to buy more than one property, and he just loves it. He goes every May. He chooses the last, I think, a week or 10 days of May, and he has great pleasure in going there, walking through the alpine meadows and through the forests and stuff. But
tell me
he's a
today,
huge fan.
what is the size of land that you are protecting, and who's the custodian of that block of land?
The foundation, it's called Foundation Conservation Carpathia, bit of a mouthful, FCC, and it's a Romanian foundation which predominantly had foreign trustees. Now it's more like 50-50 between Romanians and foreigners, and it's established to be the holder of those lands that we managed to acquire, and I think it's something like about 40,000 hectares now.
Okay, that's a decent.
But the target area is something like 250,000 hectares, but the majority of it is government land and community land. So what we're trying to do is piece together all the private lands that come on the market, and it's a lot of time in the notary, because you've got 2 hectares, 5 hectares, 500, 20, 30. You're doing deals every day, taking up this land that's coming up for sale, and then so we have to manage that land. We have rangers in there. We make sure there's no poaching, anti-poaching. We don't do any hunting, whereas around us there's some hunting and stuff. And we buy the hunting rights as well, for not just our land, but land beyond our land. We buy those hunting rights. It's called an orchestra, and we stop hunting. So we have people that pay for hunting rights but don't hunt. And we started trying to let nature manage itself.
Because you've got a pretty. Tell us a bit about the biodiversity, the wildlife. Well, obviously we know about the bears, but what else is there?
Well, you've got just about everything that Europe had. So bears, wolves, lynx, wild boar, red deer, roe deer. You've got all the badgers and the beavers, and now we've got bison back. We bought bison back.
Okay, so you bought the bison back.
The bison came bought back, so now they're really growing up.
Well, you told us, and they're thriving. And they're trekking.
They're thriving, and they like to check the boundaries and climb up high in the summer. So that's good. The only animal that I guess is not there that you would find in slightly further north in Poland would be the European elk. So I'm not sure they were in Romania. I don't actually know that, but otherwise, all the big critters are there now, and in good numbers, and I think Romania is seeing, more and more curious, conscious travellers go there.
Good.
You know, and there's some wonderful hospitality there. I mean, great, lodges to stay at. People
But
have
it's nice and authentic. You haven't got any of the big hotel brands there. When
very,
you
very authentic. And Bucharest itself, I mean, a lot of people don't like the town. I quite do. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of restaurants and hotels, and it's quite fun. But they used to call it the Paris of the East.
Is that?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, before Ceausescu started
the dictator.
cutting down, bulldozing all the beautiful old villas and stuff, which he, thank God, touch wood, didn't manage to get through. But so there's a lot of fine examples of great architecture there and traditional land and buildings and so on. And so, but Romania's, created a whole sort of there's a whole new generation of wealth creators and entrepreneurs that are coming up and building big businesses. And it's quite nice and to know that some of those are now getting involved with our foundation.
Good.
And making grants. There was a day when you would talk to someone about contribution philanthropy and you'd sort of be laughed at,
Yeah, I'm sure.
in certain parts of Europe, like even Spain and Italy, I mean, they still don't get it, really. It's still a struggle in those countries. It seems to me that the United States and Britain
To lead the way.
get it the most, but it will spread. It will.
I mean, as you
It
say,
takes time.
it's already coming.
All these things take time. Paul.
It needs to come quickly. Yeah. I mean, Paul, obviously, you've had years and years of philanthropy and conservation and met incredible people, across the planet. What is your outlook for the planet? We're facing this crisis. A lot of people just seem so oblivious to it and just carry on as normal. Is there hope?
Well, and you said the outlook for the planet. I'm not really concerned so much about the planet. I'm sort of concerned about the species that live on it, not just wild species, but humanity. And I'm very, very, how can I say, I'm not particularly optimistic of the future. I think it's, with the population of the planet tripling in one person's lifetime, the years that David Attenborough has been alive, population has gone from 2.7 billion to like 8 billion. And in that time, consumption per capita is probably tenfold. You've got to be somewhat, dumb not to realize that that's having a huge impact. And so I am a self-confessed Armageddonist. And, I'm okay with that. I'm simply okay with it. Why is it that other species should come and go on this planet and suffer an extinction event and not us? What, because we're clever? We don't seem to really understand our home. We get caught up in the details of life and we miss the big picture. And the big picture is air, water and soil and understanding our dependence upon those things. And there's so many of us that we use, terrible, fertilizers and pesticides to spray fields. All that rubbish goes into food and it goes into the rivers, and then we drink the water. And so, it's unbelievable, and it just doesn't seem to stop. I think that if you were to add up all the children that have been born since we've been sitting here, I wonder what percentage of those kids were born out of love and real and the need for them. I wonder what percentage. I won't put it very high. So, I think we seem to be addicted to families. It seems to be like, well, if you don't have a family, you're kind of weird. And then if you have one child, you're even weirder. And why don't you have two or three? And, why don't you have a proper family and stuff? It's like, there's that peer pressure sometimes. And for me, it's and then people become obsessed with their kids. So their whole life goes into, helping those kids grow up and feed them and school them and everything else. And what time you have and what financial resources you have after doing that is very limited. So you lose your life in a way, and you there's 20 years of your life just goes when you end up having to work, get on that hamster wheel. You're in the city or town. You're just working to pay the bills, and it's because you wanted a family, and Well, that comes at a price. And not only that, but when it comes to philanthropy or contribution, you're so busy on a Saturday morning when it's an opportunity to go out and work for a local charity or do something with an old people's home or deliver some food parcels to here, there, do something. You're exhausted, and then your kids are all over you.
You're on the sports
They want to go
field.
to judo class, they want to go football field, you got to do this, that, and the other, and you've got no chance to give back. So we're a bit of a crazy egg. It's a conundrum.
Interesting way to.
It's a conundrum, and it seems to be all about family and the celebrating of families. And I honestly think that most of the problems in the world today stem between a man's legs. That's where it starts from. I think that's the problem.
I think I agree with that.
Lack of control.
Can't argue that. Can't argue with that.
So I know it's tough to say, but there's 8 billion people. 8 billion.
And as you say, in Attenborough's life, it went from 2 to 8. I
Mm,
mean, imagine the next.
2.7.
Yeah.
2.7 to 8 billion.
I mean, that's frightening. That's a very frightening way of how this is just.
It is.
gonna
I mean,
go through the roof.
I talk about the travel industry
Mm.
and skimming, dipping and diving. And I think you might have heard this, but before COVID, the business world, the business community was flying all over the world for a meeting here, a meeting there, a conference here, a conference there. And now 50% plus of that has gone online.
Yeah.
We're all wonderful. We can do all this online, save hotels, airfares, all those stuff. And I thought, great. That's a way of getting people just to calm down and slow down air traffic and so on and so forth. But no, then people they did more social travel now. So literally, I know people who go away every other weekend through the winter, either skiing or to a party somewhere or go to Ibiza or whatever it might be. And it's this addiction to constant traveling. And when you go to these places, you don't actually engage or you don't connect or you don't learn anything. So you end up, it's called a skimming trip. You don't even get to unpack your bag. You're there for such a short period of time. And that saddens me. I much rather promote dipping holidays where you go to a place for a week or two and you actually unpack your bag, you breathe, and you start speaking to people around you who live in the community, and you start to learn something.
And you give value to that community.
Yeah.
Because you're not just dipping in and out.
Yeah. So that's a dip, and then a dive is
It's
if
quite
you're
interesting.
not work, you want to go somewhere for 2 months in the middle of winter or something to work.
I remember when COVID happened you're quite right. It took a pandemic to figure out that Zoom, and it was then Skype, remember?
Yeah.
Was a product that we should actually all be using, because you know what it's like. People would have just gone to New York for that one big meeting.
They do.
Listed up for 2 nights.
They did.
And then got on a plane back, traveled business class, and
I remember once going to South Africa for one night.
there you go. You were
2 days, one night.
you were a culprit.
Yeah, I was culprit.
We all
I
are.
was a victim.
We
So
are.
it was like, we got to go and meet these people. It's a big deal here. They got to make it. And it was in-out. And luckily, a lot of that has stopped now. But it's been taken up by people having their quick fixes.
We called it anger tourism because everyone got so pissed off with being confined to their homes. And when tourism gates opened, they just went aggressively. And that was the reverse effect of COVID. You're quite right. And
So we at the European Nature Trust have started these week-long.
yeah, tell us a bit more about this.
Yeah, they're Jacob and I have been working on this coexistence journeys, where the organizations that we support through the trust, in Italy, in Spain, in Romania, in Portugal, where we work with those foundations, but we also work with local DMCs, local on-the-ground wildlife experts, and we put together itineraries for anywhere between 5 and 7 nights, say, to really great parts of Europe that we work in, with the aim of showing people the species we talk about and talk about saving, and really engaging them. And we have a pretty intense itinerary, and we did our first one back about a month ago in Italy for wolves, and it was a huge success. So much so that all the people that came, I think it was 5 couples came, and they all sort of gelled together like glue.
Nice.
And they now want to go and do more trips together as a group. So it's great. And 50% of the cost of those trips go straight to the foundation.
It's beautiful.
50%, at least 50, sometimes 60. So we try to sell them between £2,000 to £3,000 per head sharing,
Mm.
but you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck.
It's good. Yeah, a nice immersive holiday is what you're talking about. Go for
Yeah.
a week or two, but go on a learning holiday. That's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, we're acting really as a travel agent, where all our margin goes to the foundation. So, of course, it's some resource for us to organise, but we're not.
Taking off.
Yeah, we will do 2 more this year. We'll do another wolf and bear one in Italy in September. We're doing a lynx one in southern Spain in November. We'll do another wolf one next February, winter in wolves and snow, and then we'll do one in Romania next May.
Yeah, we got to come on one of those. Yeah.
You have to.
No, we really do need to. Yeah.
You have
I'd love to do that, but you got to be with us.
When were you last in Romania?
No, I've never been.
Um,
We had to put it off. We were meant to go last year. We put it off, and then we ended up shooting in South Africa, so we never went. But we're desperate to go. We really want to
We
go.
have a trustees meeting coming up in
You told me in May.
and maybe
But you said it might be a bit iffy because the trustee's got to be quite serious. And
Well, no, I mean, Charlie just wrote me an email the other day saying, Paul, who have you got in mind? I mean, obviously, most of the people we bring along, we like to think they're going to be donors of some sort. But I'm still going to go, and you can still come along, and you could then hang out with Charlie Otley and myself and Gregor, and we're going to go up to a place called Toplica, where there's a gentleman taking people out to see bears and wolves. We're going to see Gregor Chowdhury and Zabola. And
is that exactly in May?
this is exactly the week of the 17th, I think it is.
Okay.
It's a Monday the 18th. That week, I'm going to be there for 2 weeks.
But we don't. We'll come for a few days of that.
Yeah. Well, we should look at the diary.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. I really would.
Look at the schedule, and you can see what I'm doing at certain times on that trip.
All right.
See where you can dip in.
So I've got one last question for you. Come here. I want you to tell me about the pet industry.
Yeah, well,
Because I've heard that you've got a very one-sided view on this.
Yeah, it's a very strong view on the pet industry.
Close your ears, Maya.
And I think that when God, created the earth or whatever, or whoever it was, whatever happened, there was the wild animals all out there, and then we started to emerge. And then all of a sudden, you're looking down, think, well, what have I created here? I got all the humans here. Oh my God, the wild animals are over there, they've been compromised. And then we got a whole other group of things called pets. And they go from everything from tiny songbirds through to boa constrictors to cats and dogs. So we've become obsessed with the pet industry. And it's a huge cost to the environment because, of course, they all eat. So they all need food. And so I was in a bar in the States once, and I sat next to I said to the guy, what do you do for a living? He said, I'm in the pet industry. I said, oh, great, lovely. I said, what does that entail? He said, I grow gators. I said, you grow gators? He said, yeah, I grow gators in big tanks. And then they become dog food. And so
The gators become dog food.
yeah. So we're growing other wild animals. We're putting them in tanks to grow them to feed. So you go to London now, any big city, people are walking around with tiny little dogs that need to be carried. They've got no legs. I mean, they're being dragged. We got, and then people walking around with plastic bags and then picking up their poops, and then putting it in their pocket. I mean, how hideous is that? It's gone berserk. And I think that the worst is songbirds in the Orient. There are people in the forest there that put glue on branches, and birds, their wings get stuck like they're crucified on this tree, and they get picked off, put in tubes, and then they wake up the next day, they're in some apartment in a cage in Manhattan. I mean, domestic cats in the United Kingdom kill 40 million songbirds a year.
This is one animal.
40 million songbirds a year are killed by domestic cats. But everybody, when you talk about pets, everybody wants to drill down to their pet and why their pet is acceptable. It's the same wherever I go. Forget about your pet. Think about the big picture. Try and be objective, not subjective, and try and think, what have we done? It's madness. We've manifested dogs to come in all shapes and sizes, from a tiny handbag dog that will eat from someone's handbag off the same table, which is in some cases I've seen happen, to dogs that are so aggressive, they've got massive muzzles on, and they just want to jump on top of you. They've got huge animals. The breeding, it's out of control. And I just think that, people then say, oh, what about, sheepdogs and things? It's like the whole industry for me stinks as far as I'm concerned. I have just imagine going into one of those huge pet stores in the Midwest of America, 50,000 square foot store full of the noise at night with everything squawking and barking, screeching, birds of prey, whatever it might be. In Belize, scarlet macaws are poached out of, eggs are taken from nests, unincubated and grown up and then sold into the pet industry. Macaws, people carry cages around that are this big with a macaw that just fits in it. It can't even fly. It's so sad, so sad. Just imagine if we were twisted around and we were all just, manifested to be, making someone else happy. Why must we have another species to make us happy? Why is it that humans feel it's necessary, if you're single, live on your own, or a couple without children, whatever, or you've got dogs, why? Oh, you're so nice. Why can't we find humans to make humans happy? The giraffes, go around Shamari with warthogs following around saying, oh, you're a really great giraffe. You're fantastic. We love you. We're going to hang out with you.
Maybe, but...
it's just a joke.
Yeah.
And it's become a problem. We talk about overpopulation of humans. Wow. Don't get me going on pets. That's just the tip of the iceberg, because it goes on. It goes on. And and now feral dogs, in Italy, people talk about wolves killing livestock. Oh, excuse me. What about these dogs that are left on the street and they group together as packs? You don't want to run to those in the forest.
Trust me.
You do not want to run in to a pack of feral dogs that know what human beings are like. They will go for you.
Much more dangerous.
Wolves will just keep their distance and want nothing to do with you.
It happened to me in Saudi Arabia. I was there on a trip, and obviously being a runner, I went for running in the morning, and suddenly 5 dogs appeared, big dogs, and they started chasing me down the road. Jeez, I've never shouted so loud.
Never
picked up rocks. I was going to throw stones at them. I almost had to stop a random car to say, get me the hell out of here.
No.
They backed off, but geez, it was scary, because they'll kill you.
No. These livestock guarding dogs in the Apennines, in the Carpathians, you don't want to mess with them. They're not sheepdogs, they're guard dogs. So they're brought up very young with the flock. If it's goats or sheep, they're brought up. They think they're going, and then they become guardians. And they got these spikes around the collars here, so if a bear or a wolf wants to attack them, they don't. But you don't want to mess with those. And I don't know. It's just one of those things that irritates me. I just think, God, why did everybody wants to have a pet? Not everybody, but a lot of people do. But a lot of people agree with me. That people think about it. They go, you know what, Paul? Maybe you shouldn't have so many of these dogs and cats.
Yeah, listen,
budgerigars, and stuff. It's like, wow. Was that just to keep us amused? It's just strange. It's just manifested and expanded and grown, and now it's become totally commercial. You can even buy, a step ladder so your pooch can get up onto the fucking sofa. Because it's not got long enough legs, so it's just got middle steps and gets up onto the. My mother has got a tiny dog, a terrier, and that dog, when I walk in the house, it's always at my feet, dying for me to touch it, and it's the only dog virtually that I engage with, because it's my mother's dog, and she's looking at me and going, please, so just put your hand out, stroke my dog, and then there's peace. So anyway, that's
all right.
my view on the pet.
Paul, it's been fascinating. I really enjoyed this, and I'm very grateful to you for coming down here to the Boma.
Love to be here. Cheers. Thank you, Paul.
All the best.